He's the man who's achieved almost everything he ever wished for, and now he just feels burnt out and exhausted. He's had many wins, but he cannot stop to pause or rest or enjoy himself. His inner voice says, everyone says I'm doing great. My life looks great, but why am I happy? Maybe I just need to reach for the next goal. Look at that guy over there. He's more successful than me still. I need to step up my game. Maybe when I reach his level, then I can be happy. This is the story of the man who cannot feel or enjoy his success.
Nice intro. Nailing it right away.
So today's topic, we want to talk about this. I would say it's a very common trait in many men's lives. We have the pleasure of usually interacting with and working with guys who've achieved a lot of success, enough to realize that more success won't make them happy, but they still find it hard to switch off or to actually pause and enjoy. And I think we've also had quite an experience of that in our lives as well.
Yeah. I think it's actually one of the most common things guys, entrepreneurs, high performers come to us with, saying, actually on paper everything's so good, but I just don't feel it. I don't feel emotions really, or I feel stressed. One of these things. And then also there often comes a guilt with that because, other people don't have so many great things in their life as I do. Why am I not feeling better? I shouldn't be feeling that way. I'm wrong to feel that way. So that actually happens very often.
Mm-hmm. And so in this episode, we're going to go a bit deeper into what are some of the causes of this? How does it show up? Like the symptoms of someone who cannot enjoy their success. And then also some of the deeper reasons behind what's actually happening under the hood, or what we've seen time and time again in also our journeys and finding out what was underneath the hood for us, and also what's happening deep down for many of the clients that we've worked with. And hopefully then a few paths forward to kind of, or maybe perspective shifts to help you at home understand a bit more, like, how can I change this mindset, or even do I want to change this mindset? Because some people like to still hang on to this even though they know it's something that's not serving them.
It's like this, what you just said about, I want to keep doing that, because even if we would tell stories of many founders who maybe already did an exit and they all say the same thing, the thing I thought makes me happy doesn't actually do it. But I think for many people to actually believe it, they need to experience it themselves. And some of the guys said, okay, yeah, I'm actually noticing I'm hustling too much. I'm going into burnout almost, but just a little more until I have that amount of money. And then I can take care of myself then, because then I feel safe, and kind of not wanting to open the door earlier. But what if there is a way to actually still achieve it without forgetting how to feel and how to enjoy?
Yeah, for sure. On that note, what you said about needing to maybe go through the process of experiencing success to then know that it doesn't make you happy. I think, at least for us anyway, and maybe some of the guys at home, if someone at 18 years old told them alcohol is bad for you, you shouldn't drink, they'd probably say, piss off and drink a shot in their face kind of thing. And we kind of need to go through the journey, at least that's been our journey, of partying, drinking, to realize that actually it doesn't serve anymore. And instead of doing it because we feel like, I shouldn't do that, it's bad, I'm wrong for that, it just naturally changes at some point.
And also about partying and alcohol, we're not sitting here saying it's bad, you should never drink again. I mean, I have had a party company, and I would be wrong to tell people, especially when they're young, stop doing it. But for me, the interesting thing was, looking back now, I thought I'm doing it because I'm loving it. And yes, sometimes I did, but there was also some, let's say, darker reasons behind it. It was actually a coping mechanism. It was avoiding. It was something actually deeper that didn't feel right, that I was numbing with it. And I think that's an important distinction to make. What things do I do out of enjoyment, and what do I actually do to mask things up? Many people say, I'm a foodie, I love food, which I do, but also noticed later, I also used it as a soothing mechanism to avoid my emotions.
Yeah. So on this topic of achieving success but not being able to feel it, never mind enjoy it, we have to recognize that, as René just said, there's this drive, which a lot of entrepreneurs would say, like, I love the game of business, I love the hustle, I love the grind and stuff. And that is true when in the game it feels really good, and it feels good to get a win or to basically move to the next level, at least for a short period of time. But the problem is that even though there can be a pursuit of a bigger goal, we have to look at, why is the goal being pursued in the first place? So if the goal has been pursued because I just love business, then that's it, nothing else. Just like you saying, I love alcohol or I love food just for the love of it, nothing else, then that would be fine. And then as soon as you didn't love it anymore, you would stop. But the problem we're facing here and why people can enjoy and feel their success is because a lot of times their drive for outworldly success, like bigger than anything that anyone has ever done before or anyone they know has done, comes from some deeper drive that's not just linked to business or achieving things. And it's this same fuel which lies within every successful, or pretty much all successful entrepreneurs that I've met. It's the same fuel that is creating the success and this drive to succeed that also stops them from actually enjoying the success once they get there. So there's this strange phenomenon where they set a goal and say, when I get there, then I'll be happy, then I'll enjoy it, then I'll have made it.
Yeah.
And then once they get there, there's this short-term hit of satisfaction. And then there's an immediate downplaying of it, saying, but it wasn't even that big a deal. And look, that guy over there has more success. And maybe I couldn't even do it again if I tried. So let's move the goalposts to a new goal and say, but maybe when I reach that goal, then I'll feel it. Then I'll really allow myself. And it's this kind of constant tricking of self to go higher and higher and bigger and bigger. And the thing is that the version of you 10 years ago, if you showed him where you are today and the success you've already achieved and the things you've already done, he would be fucking ecstatic, he'd be stoked. And yet you're there now, but the only thing that you can think about is feeling empty or numb or just stressed and anxious. And it's basically completely disconnected from yourself. And I think that's something that we both experienced as well in our past life running our businesses about a decade ago. So
yeah, I just quickly wanted to add there. There's actually a question I asked some of the guys who had an exit, the big exits, sold the company successfully or are about to. Exactly what you described now. I said, if you compare how you actually feel now about this milestone and think back when you were 20, when you had this dream of how it would feel when you're there, they say, yeah, it's totally different. Like the 20-year-old me had this, as you said, ecstatic imagination of what it would be like. And now it's here, maybe even much more than they expected, but it feels much less good. So the question is, what happens along the way? Why is that? And I think your question was about, our experience. So I can speak for myself. I had started my business also quite early, and my personal main driver is what I know now was actually not this financial success, but it was to live the life that I want, freedom, and me as a person who always cared a lot about what others think of me, to be liked and to be appreciated and seen by other people as a great guy. So actually I used my business as a vessel for that, and I achieved a point where I could basically didn't have to work that much. I could travel around the world all year long, spending winters in Thailand and so on. So everything was actually perfect. People said, oh, you have such a perfect life. And it was like this time when we were together in Thailand, when I really thought, what is actually happening? What am I doing? I'm waking up every morning. I can choose, do I go to Muay Thai? Do I go to walk at the beach or meet some new people, whatever? But I started to feel really empty, even though everything was technically perfect. And that was really, I would say, often people ask me, hey, what brought you on your journey, like this personal development journey? I think that was kind of the moment realizing I'm in paradise and I'm feeling like I have nothing going on for myself. And that just didn't match. And I was like, what's going on here? And that was the moment I looked to myself and questioned what happened.
Yeah, something similar for me where there was always a drive to not be controlled by anyone, not being told what to do. So the way that manifests for some entrepreneurs is starting a company where they're the boss. And it was something similar for me where I became a professional musician traveling the world and then ultimately running a booking agency, my own agency where I used to book guys all over the world. So it was kind of this thing where similarly I could travel, I could play music as my job, I could be on stage and have every night hundreds of people scream and come up to me and tell me, wow, you changed our life, that was so amazing, you know. And so
I
this
was one
constant,
of them.
you were one, yeah, you were the guy, you were
Always
bringing the
taking
people.
videos.
You were bringing the people. And so it was this like constant, like that younger version of me that felt not seen, or was, you know, didn't really maybe have friends at one point in school and really wanted to be just accepted and liked, was just every day getting that validation, that dopamine hit, you know, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm liked, I'm accepted. Until at some point, the diminishing margin of returns kicked in, where maybe I'd done that a couple of hundred times and I'd had the validation again and again, to the point where it stopped really working in the same way. I didn't get the same hit out of it anymore. So I tried, maybe I'll try this, I'll do new things. I'll bring in, I don't know, other musicians, or I'll go into this new place and travel to South America and I'll do it there and then it'll be great, you know? So it was this constant chasing of new locations, new destinations, new setups, where, or maybe more money as well, playing in like Switzerland or Scandinavia and stuff, where then I got the hit of, oh, making a bunch of money for a gig. But more and more, that return, that payoff I got started to diminish, which is also very similar for a lot of entrepreneurs, where in the beginning, the first win, even if you're kind of just grinding in your bedroom or whatever, feels amazing. But then at some point, there's so much success, but it doesn't feel the same. And so that was also what kind of led me to question of like, well, what am I doing here? And that's, yeah, the story of like many of the founders and guys that we work with, which is like they have the day of signing the papers where they have just made lifetime wealth, never have to work again. And it's like, well, how was it? And they're like, yeah, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I even hated myself. And then the next morning, it's right back to doing the thing that they've been training themselves to do their whole lives, which is just show up and work. What I realized was there's this phenomenon of like being a work in progress or being not there yet is safer and feels easier than saying like I've made it now. Because if I'm constantly working and striving towards something, then I can always offset whatever feelings I'm having to like, oh, well, this will change. This will be better then. Okay. So any discomfort I'm feeling now, any doubt, etc., gets suppressed in the moment in pursuit of that bigger goal. And to say that I've made it would suggest that I've now reached the pinnacle, the zenith of the mountain, and now it's going to start a slow and decline down into obscurity and nothingness, and yeah, basically ending up with nothing on the other side. That's the fear. So if I'm always a work in progress and constantly being hard on myself and pushing myself, then the belief is I can achieve these outrageous goals, and then maybe one day I might finally allow myself to feel worthy. But as we found out, and as we see time and time again, it doesn't always play out that way.
Yeah. And what you just described with the effects of the appreciation for your music, or this high that you got from being on stage, just got less and less and less the more often you did it. And I think that's the one side is, yes, the positive feeling we get from the outside validation gets less over time, but there's also the other side, the fear of losing it. So it becomes more a managing of the downside rather than being ever able to come up to those high highs again. Meaning if there is one day where something goes badly, it actually hits really hard because we have created this persona where we think we have to perform at this very high level, and we have to uphold that. And I see the same in relationships. Often my intention for a relationship or for people would be, hey, I want to be with somebody, we make each other's life better, easier, how can we create a beautiful connection? But the reality is many people are like kind of in this management mode that when there's no fight, I'm safe, it's good. So the baseline becomes, as long as there's no danger, I'm kind of okay, but I'm still not feeling good. You know what I mean? Like it turns from looking upwards to protecting from the downside.
Yeah.
What do you think with all those founders, if we look at it from a nervous system perspective? What happens in this journey in the nervous system that suddenly the feelings get less?
Well, you know, our nervous system, specifically what's called the autonomic nervous system, which is our most primitive responses in the body, which is like when I touch the fire, it sends a signal up my arm to my brain stem and central column, which says hot. And then my hand immediately just moves without me having to think. That happens below the field of awareness. Or if someone cuts me off in traffic, maybe without even realizing I'm suddenly angry. and I can feel anger, but I don't know why. So that's what's called the autonomic or the automatic nervous system. So it's happening automatically. So if we think about danger, okay, when there's danger, our system moves from being relaxed into needing to fight or flight or freeze, to have some response which changes or fixes the situation so we can feel safe again. So in a situation where I'm feeling like I'm not good enough or I need to prove myself or something, then there's a danger, okay? And the way I deal with that danger in this case is by fighting, by activating and working hard and constantly being on all the time, okay? And if I just keep pushing, just keep working, then finally I will achieve safety, which has been tied or attributed to that big moment in the future. But what happens is if I then train my nervous system over 10 years, just like if I go to the gym for 10 years and train my muscles, then I'll have big muscles, okay? And they'll be switched on all the time. If I train my nervous system to constantly be on, then in 10 years' time, when I have that moment that I can finally feel safe and joyful and stuff, well, I've been training for 10 years to do something different, which is a fight. So naturally, it's not so easy to just switch off because we've conditioned ourselves otherwise. So there has to be a process of not just working on a mental level, but on a nervous system level, on a body level, of rewiring what actually the automatic processes of the body are. And that's something that, of course, we do with breathwork, and something that I think was really important for our journey as well, which was to look at all the unconscious ways we trained ourselves to seek validation or keep pushing or all those kind of things, which then need to be almost uninstalled, so that we can then replace it with patterns that are more supportive. Not to say we can't switch on and get into business mode, or, if I want to go and play the odd concert or something, it's not like I can't do it anymore and I still enjoy it, but it's not my default program. I think that's the difference.
Yeah. And I think many people start to look at emotions as an enemy against the performing that is needed to achieve the success. Like if I have 1,000 things to do and it's already almost impossible to fit into that day, and I have to lead a team, and then I'm getting sad or angry about something, or I'm seen as the person who doesn't have his shit together, that is bad. So I learned to suppress that, but that also comes with suppressing the positive emotions as well.
Yeah.
And if I constantly feel like I need to perform, also my nervous system can't relax. And there was one woman in Bali who said to me some quote, it was something around, beauty can only be seen with a calm body and a clear heart. And she said, imagine when you're sitting watching the sunset, but you're actually super overthinking something in your relationship or in work. This can be the most beautiful sunset in the world. You're not going to feel it in that moment. However, if you, let's say, do a meditation or breathwork session as an extreme example, and you feel super relaxed, you're not thinking about anything, and you come and see the sunset, you can actually be extremely present. And since she said that to me, I'm noticing it whenever I see a sunset or something nice, and I can so feel the difference. Like, how do I feel in my body? And then my ability to actually enjoy life and the present moment. And that's just become an enemy of the successful entrepreneur. Yeah. In addition to the fact that feelings are often seen as weakness, especially for men.
Totally. And I think that's a great segue into talking about what are the main traits or characteristics of someone who finds it hard to feel success. So if you're someone who feels like, hey, I'm actually in a pretty good place in life, but I feel really flat and numb and disconnected, and I don't really feel like I'm enjoying or can enjoy what I've built, you might find yourself that you might be doing some of these. So the first one is linked to that. It's basically busyness. So calendar being full, being on all the time, on some level believing that rest equals weakness and potential failure. And like you said, with emotions, it's almost like taking emotions and turning them into fuel. Okay. So anything that comes up, it just activates me more. And I use that to then try to be more productive. Okay. As I said before, locked in that fight or flight mode, constantly on, no rest, which is great for getting shit done for a period of time, but can lead to overextending and burnout. Can also lead to, as I said, not being able to be present and enjoy things. Second one is what I call the moving goalposts. So it's an inability to allow yourself to rest or to properly celebrate or feel joy when you achieve something that cognitively you should be happy with. And everyone else tells you, wow, so great. But some part convinces that I can't yet be happy. I have to do more and then I'll finally be allowed. So it's the goalposts were here. I finally reached it and then they move further away. And it's this constant chasing of the next big milestone, the next big win. And no win is big enough or can be kind of rested on for long enough. The next one then is we could look at this concept of the inner critic. And usually people with this pattern have a very strong inner critic, or like we call it like the inner David Goggins. So that inner drill sergeant, like that army military guy who's like, work harder, bitch. You didn't do enough. You know, you woke up at 6, should have got up at 5. And it feels like a fight just to get to the end of the day, just to kind of collapse at the end of the day. And maybe then he shuts up for a few hours when you sleep kind of thing. Constant shaming and judging of self. And also comparing to other people as well all the time. So constantly ranking, how am I performing relative to others? How are they doing compared to me? Am I above them or am I below them? And yeah, then judging oneself if anyone else around is doing better. Is that something that you've had experience with?
I think that's, again, something that happens on retreats as well. And we really put that in front of people very clearly, and then they start to see that they're doing it. Because throughout the retreat, there's a lot of successful guys. And even within that, they have then explained that in the start, oh, this guy has more money than me, so I was afraid to share my weaknesses because in my perception, I thought this guy is perfect. Mm-hmm. And then it was only through seeing that everybody has some challenges, and it doesn't matter what they have achieved, there are still parts of them that they are struggling with. And I think that's actually a quite logical thing, but it still needs to be something that they see and experience to believe it. So we even actively did some exercises where they have to compare themselves on different times, different areas in life, and then like line up next to each other, which then became a funny thing because it kind of brought humor to the situation and to the fact that many men are doing this, but that it actually doesn't change anything about us as humans, and that we just started to see each other purely as humans, no matter how successful we are, starting to be comfortable with that. And then people have said that then helped them to see that in their life and when they're compensating and just getting more awareness of it.
Yeah, totally. Another big one that links to that is this concept of guilt, which you mentioned before. So a strong trait typically for people who can't enjoy their success is not feeling positive emotion or as much as they should. And then that being followed up by another feeling of guilt, which is like, I should be happy. There's people who have far less than me that are happy. Why haven't I like them? Because I've got more than them. And there's this idea of like a baseline that we have that changes. At some point, maybe you were making, I don't know, 500 euros or 1,000 euros a month from a part-time job, and you were stoked and you could go and spend that and enjoy it. And now you could be making 100 times that. But actually, it doesn't feel good. Why is that? Well, because like we do adjust over time and our baseline changes, and then packed into that is if the thing that's driving us to achieve more isn't just fulfillment and happiness, but it's actually to try and prove ourselves or feel enough, and we've been driven by what we could say is the wrong fuel, then at some point, as we said before, the novelty will wear off, the diminishing returns, gets lower and lower. And then we kind of start to realize, oh, I should be happy because I've achieved X more things, but I don't feel an appropriate rise in Y happiness. Why is that? And it's usually a good sign that there's something off in terms of the fuel that's driving you towards success. Another big one, and we can speak, there's a few layers to this one, is addictions. Okay. So a strong sign of someone who's really pushing themselves to be successful but not feeling it, they're usually pushing themselves hard in this fight or flight mode all the time, overachieving. And then they need to balance that out somehow, because that's not sustainable. So they can't rest. It's not safe to rest, or they don't feel good about resting. But they need to find a way to switch off their brain occasionally. So typically, the nervous system will find other doors it can go through to find a little bit of respite and chill. So some examples could be social media or porn or food, or just anything that takes our mind off. Another great example is alcohol as well. And it's very common for, obviously that's something that we would have experienced in the past as well. And a lot of the guys that come to us will typically have their own personalized outlet or two that they use to kind of, at the end of the day, take the edge off. But of course, that then creates a new cycle of self-shaming where they're like, oh, I fucked up. I binged on this thing. I watched 4 hours of Netflix and ate 5 bags of chips. And now I feel like shit. And now I need to work harder tomorrow to get back at myself. The way that this can also show up as well, let's say someone has already had some kind of success or even an exit or something where they now no longer need to work. What typically happens is their addiction to working translates then into other areas. So there could be an addiction to working on themselves and education. So listening to podcasts, courses, going to seminars, audiobooks, that kind of thing, of like constantly needing to be improving myself. It could be addiction to optimization and biohacking. So doing the perfect red light, sauna, gym, optimizing Whoop, Aura Ring, gadget routine, Or it could even be as far as going in some path of spirituality and saying, oh, I'm going to become the most spiritual person. I'm going to meditate for 4 hours a day and do 3 ayahuasca sessions a week or whatever, in the pursuit of reaching some next level. And we could look at all those things and say, oh, interesting, that person is looking after themselves, or they're such a conscious, open-minded person. But it's been driven on some level by not feeling the success and then needing to try these other things to try and feel something and get somewhere, as they previously tried to do in business.
Yeah. I think it's also the addiction thing is interesting because nobody likes to look at themselves as an addict. And if I think back growing up, I think the definition was somebody who's getting drunk every day or shooting up drugs or something. That's like an addict. And yes, that's of course a different level, an extreme version of that. But I think many people are in some ways addicted to some of the things you just said. But it's like easier to justify, oh, it's okay, it's normal, other people do that as well. But once you look closer, like the scrolling, why am I actually doing this? Food, I think, is a great example. Vaping or smoking, it's just like taking the pressure off for a moment. And I think it's a great marker for somebody to ask themselves, what of these things am I doing too much of? Do I actually eat because my body needs some fuel, or am I just filling the blanks, the time that I don't want to be with myself or reward myself with something? So that's, I think, just a nice little reminder of like a check-in for yourself. Which of these things am I actually doing, and what do I maybe do too much and why?
Yeah. If I'm going to go drive to the airport, which I'm actually going to do later tonight, there's one main road that I can take, which is the fastest way there, the highway. However, if the highway is closed, then I'm going to try to find the next best available route, maybe with Google Maps or something, in order to drive there. And maybe then there's a third way I could take if that was also out of order or closed. So if your body's tired, the highway to recovery is rest. Okay? Taking time off, chilling. But if in some way I've trained myself that rest is for weaklings and that if you rest, you're going to fail, or it's not safe to rest, then you have to find the next available route alternative, which is going to be something like, depending on who you are, it's going to be watching porn, it's going to be eating a lot, it's going to be drinking alcohol or vaping or something, as you said, something that activates the parasympathetic system in the body that brings the system down. It's operating on a high alert red line all the time. We need to bring it down. All of those activities create a drop in the nervous system, which is the pause that it needs. So what you need to recognize is if you're finding yourself being pulled towards these activities or these things, and even more so justifying, yeah, but I earned it, I deserve it, it's okay, I've worked hard, On some level, we need to look at how am I choosing a secondary mode of rest instead of actually just taking some downtime, and why is it so hard to do that? And that will depend person to person. So let's talk about some of the deeper reasons of why people find it hard to feel their success. Like, we kind of now know a number of the symptoms and how that shows up, how that manifests in a day-to-day and inside of someone in their mind. But we want to look at what even causes this in the first place. What is driving someone on such a deep level to get to a point where they've done all these great things, but they can't even feel it and they can't enjoy it? The first thing we have to look at is, why would someone push themselves that hard? And typically, we have this thing called the achiever pattern, okay? Which is early in life being rewarded or given validation or love or acceptance for playing a role of someone who achieves. So if I grow up in a place where I learn, or that could be directly or indirectly, it could be saying in my home of like, winners come out on top or something like this. It could also be unconsciously, if I come home with maybe medium grades, I don't get treated well and I get punished. So it's maybe not overtly said or explicitly said, but it's still shown in the actions of my caregivers or parents or my environment, where if I perform and succeed, I'm given a pat on the head. I'm told, good job, you're a good boy. Wow, look, the neighbors, look how great our son is. Or the inverse, it could be if I don't do well, if I don't get top place, if I don't get the best grades, then I'm in some way shamed, or love is withheld, or I don't get some reward. Or I'm even compared to other people. Look at your sister. She's so successful. Why aren't you? So there's this praising for achievement and shaming for poor performance. And that creates inside a drive or a program of a child who's kind of stuck in time. Maybe it's like this 7-year-old child who's then constantly attempting to win the approval of his parents in this infinite time loop inside by succeeding today. So it's this idea, we have this, which we talk about in other podcasts, of a stress cycle, or a cycle where someone has a let's say an emotion or a feeling or a part of them that gets almost stuck inside, that they're constantly trying to complete and bring completion to. And the belief is, if I succeed, if I hit this goal, then I'll feel good. And on a deep subconscious level, there's this younger part that is desperately trying to be seen and loved and validated, which it really needs to have to survive, but wasn't met in that moment. So it becomes this almost hungry ghost scenario where we keep trying to achieve more and more to fill this void, but it's never enough, unfortunately.
Also, an interesting flip side of this pattern you're just describing is that these achieving people we see often really struggle to receive compliments, receive gifts, if they didn't do anything in particular to deserve it. Mm-hmm. So they get almost embarrassed when somebody just does something nice to them on a human level, just because they are. And I think that's, again, also a question you can ask yourself. How easy is it for you to receive? Or are you more somebody who's more comfortable in just giving, doing things for others? But what if somebody just sees you, does something for you, even if you don't do anything to deserve it?
Yeah, I think that's something that was definitely for me was the case, because the way I, in some way, showed my worth to others was by, let's say, being an amazing entertainer, performer, or in a later on, even early on in my kind of coaching and business thing, it was, could I provide the biggest insight? Could I give that person a breakthrough? And the thing was that it almost felt internally like, if I'm not doing that, then I'm not worthy, or I'm not deserving of love in some way. But what I found was, even when someone would turn around and say, oh my God, your music changed my life, or oh my God, you gave me this big breakthrough which changed my life, it still didn't really land. It was still almost like I wasn't safe to receive it, because then I might get complacent, and then I might get lazy, and then I would be unworthy.
Yeah.
If I would ultimately then get too cocky and fail. So it was like this constant thing of wanting to prove myself, but then when I was rewarded for it, not being able to actually receive it.
Yeah, not just to be able to say, thank you so much, but like, it's nothing.
No big deal.
No big deal, or you do the same for me, or whatever. It like can't let it stand there. I remember my physical reaction on the first retreat. Obviously, on a retreat, you really intentionally show who you are as a human being, and there's no performance aspect. You share things, you share feelings, you share things that move you, and other people listen, and then you really get to show your true self. And that is for many people a new experience. But I remember then on the very last night when we kind of did this thing where everybody was in the spotlight for a few minutes and just receiving feedback from the group in how they saw me throughout this week. And I thought, oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, I was we talked about this, that we are actually doing this intentionally for the guys, but then it kind of happened that we were included in the exercise. And little did I know, when it was my turn, my heartbeat went really high. I got super nervous because I realized, okay, I'm just going to now receive probably some kind words just for being me. And I didn't know how uncomfortable that was, how risky it felt to be seen in that way. And that was like an eye-opener for me again, because like I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah. And I think at the core of that is something that pretty much every human has a relationship with or struggles with in some way, which is this idea of self-worth. Am I enough? Am I worthy? And I think on the surface level, we have all these actions and behaviors and thoughts and beliefs that we have in the day to day and throughout our lives. And if we bring it all the way down to the core, there's this question which we all have, which is, am I enough? Am I worthy? It's not like it's a binary thing where I'm 0% worthy or 100% worthy, and that's the only two choices. There's usually like a bit of a spectrum that we're on and we're moving up and down. But I think for a lot of people who, in this case, like you were saying, it applies to different amounts or different degrees. I think everyone who is in a situation of pushing to succeed, but then not being able to receive the gratitude or the joy or happiness when it comes, there's some level of feelings of unworthiness happening at a very core level. Another thing we could call shame, basically. So shame has the belief of, I have some problem with me, I'm broken in some way, I'm not lovable for some reason, and I need to hide those reasons from the world. And on the flip side, I need to show how great I am and perform and have everyone love me so that they can never see this ugly part which I've hidden away from the world over here. And the vulnerability you were saying there of receiving feedback, it feels uncomfortable to the part that's always tried to prove itself, because on some level, people are seeing you and sharing feedback, but maybe they don't know about this other thing I've hidden in the basement, you know? And it's almost like it's not even conscious, but it more presents as you said, the heartbeat, the feeling that comes up. And that's something that I know for me, a couple of years ago, would have been also extremely difficult, because it felt so out of balance from this character that on some unconscious level I believed I was, which was, oh, actually, I never had this thought. I would never even allow myself to think this or admit this, but on some level I thought I'm fucking flawed or broken or something. And so I constantly couldn't look at that, avoided that, and then constantly needed to create situations where I could prove I wasn't to someone, to myself, to the world, I don't know. And that's not something that switches off, like that desire to prove myself at all costs. And that's why it's so hard when we achieve the success or achieve the praise and recognition, why it doesn't feel safe to receive it, because there's still this deep thing, this deep shameful part of me that I haven't looked at. And that part feels threatened by this praise or by the success, because it says like, oh, if you actually accept this, then maybe you'll get complacent and then you'll fail, or you'll show who you really are. And then people will abandon you, or then you'll be alone. And then, I don't know, you'll die in a bush kind of thing. So this shameful part that's hiding down here in the shadows, okay, that most people don't even maybe know exists, but can feel on some level. If what I'm saying resonates, then maybe you can feel it on some level. The challenge with many people when we start to bring this into the light is say, well, you can heal this, you know, and then you'll feel much better. Then you'll enjoy your success. You'll feel happy. But actually, when they have the choice of saying, do you want to go into and to heal this and let it go? A part of them says no, because actually that's the reason why I've been so successful, because I have this deep inner David Goggins critic who's beat me up all the time, telling me I'm nothing. And if I let that go, then I might get complacent and fail. So it becomes this self-fulfilling prison, kind of Stockholm syndrome with our own parts, which is knowing that it's not helpful, knowing that it's actually not supportive to our well-being and mental health, but also not wanting to let it go. So kind of getting merged with the oppressor in a way, for fear of becoming a fat, lazy slob or a failure, as it will be. So here's the thing. If you're someone listening to this and you're going, okay, that really resonates. I know I've got these parts of me that I kind of beat myself up over, and then I don't feel success, or I don't feel joy or happiness or love. But I don't want to let it go, because that feels edgy as well. There's a deeper kind of truth bomb here, which is that maybe you could consciously choose to leverage this inner critic and let it push you for the next few years until you achieve some level of success. And you could say, oh, well, when I reach that level, then I'll have more than enough money for the rest of my life and everything will be fine. And then I'll work on this. Fair enough. If that's what you want to do, then off you go for it. But you also need to realize that there is no level of success that will actually make you feel enough and that will change this inner emptiness. At some point, you're going to have to go and look at this if you want to be able to enjoy the fruits of all this hard work you've been putting in for the past years. There's no other way around it. And that's something that we both had to learn the hard way and that we see time and time again with our guys. They got to do it the hard way.
Yeah, I have one interesting story there with a friend of mine, because all this achieving pattern, there's, of course, we talk mostly about business, but it can also translate into romantic relationships where we think we have to perform. Certainly, that's something that was my journey as well, where my partner made me aware of this sometimes, that, hey, you are already, I love you the way you are. You don't always have to be perfect. Because for me, it was like more on a personal level than a business level, this achieving pattern. And I thought, now I've worked so much on myself. So I have this high standard that I have to always act perfectly in human situations, be that with friends. I have to read others. I need to act perfectly when I'm triggered. I need to stay grounded, never slip. Like that's like kind of my achiever.
Yeah.
And that was something I really made progress with now in a relationship with a person who can also hold up the mirror. But the story that makes the very good point to what you said is, I have a friend and he got a heartbreak. He was into a woman, and then I don't even remember, for some reason she said,
see you later.
See you later. And then he felt shit and he said, well, I'm not in good shape right now. So this is like, and that many guys do that. Break up, suddenly they hit the gym every day and use this negative energy as something positive, which is great. And that can be like a door opener to other positive shifts. But to think that this is going to fix the core issue, it's just not true. And I remember I had this conversation with him and he was so adamant that he's right. He's like, no, I'm going to get myself in really good shape now. So I look the best I can. And then I believe I'm a quite good looking guy. And then if a woman who I like will reject me, I won't care, because I know I can just get the next woman. And I said, you know what I think? I think it's going to hurt you even more, because now you did all the things that you're the best version of yourself, and still she rejects you.
Yeah.
And it's a bit the same with the money. Like, I have all this money and then I will be happy. But when you're not, then it hurts even more. So what happened, like 2 years later or something, exactly that happened. And he called me and he's like, it's hard for me to say, but you were right. It's even worse now. So we only have to, like, it's an inside job, basically.
Totally. And on a short term or surface level layer, it might feel great to be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm going to turn this frown upside down. I'm going to turn this hardship into the biggest success story, and then I'm going to be on a podcast and tell them about how great it was, and I'll be like telling my hero's journey story. And the good news is you can still do that, but what we've seen time and time again, I think our process with that has been also very great learning for me as well, is that there can be this shift from the inner critic, the inner drill sergeant, to more of an inner cheerleader, where it's not like you become a fat, lazy slob who suddenly is content and then doesn't want to do anything cool in the world. It's that instead of fighting against your demons, you actually have a cheerleader or a coach who's like supporting you from the inside and saying, yeah, man, you can do this. Go for it. I believe in you. Instead of like, you're nothing. You're a piece of shit. And you're having to fight against him to try get ahead. So yes, it's energy and it's fuel, but it's ultimately a negative form of energy. And wouldn't it feel so much better to have that energy be channeled positively? Yeah. And not even that you need to try and be like, do my morning visualization so I can channel it into something positive. If you actually go deep enough, and this has been our process, but if you go deep enough, you can actually feel, work with, process, let go of whatever is causing that at a core level. It does actually shift into something that is generative. It's creative. It pushes you forward. It believes in you and lifts you up. And it might even be that cheerleader that you never had earlier in your life, that you needed to develop this inner grinder to kind of get ahead in life. And now you can actually have someone who just supports you, such as the parent that you never had. You can be that for yourself. So some examples of that would be, this happened with a few clients where they would have this inner, we refer to it as a wartime CEO. So this version of them that's inside like an army general with like an eye patch and all these scars from battle. And that's the guy who goes in and gets shit done and he's grinding, he's working hard and he's there for the war. And then at some point, he morphs or transforms into the peacetime CEO, who's like the more Mark Zuckerberg, like the visionary, the one who can actually turn from just using brute force into building something that never was even possible before. And actually the transition into this peacetime CEO is usually linked with a big change in their actual personal lives as well, in terms of levels of contentment and peace, but then also the openness to follow goals and projects that are actually really exciting for them. Instead of like, oh, I need to start a new business now because I'm falling behind and I need to prove to the world. It's more like, oh, I would love to do this. It lights me up. I'm excited by it. And that's what I want to put my time and energy into. And that's a meaningful life, and a meaningful use of all the skills that I built along the way, driven by new fuel, basically.
Yeah. I think it's also, maybe it has to do, what do you think? It has a bit to do with age as well, because I think this wartime CEO energy, this testing my limits, going crazy, traveling, or building that business because I want to make money, having the first bigger amount hitting my account. For a 22, 25-year-old, that feels really good. You're in this energy of still, I'm exploring myself. And I actually don't think this is a bad thing, but it's like, when do I, like, it's very easy to miss to get off the train.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're 35 or 40 and these same things don't work anymore. Maybe even it turns around saying, what am I doing? I'm still the same. So finding the transition from wartime to peacetime, because for me now I'm 40, now peace is much more important to me than like this craziness or this adventure. Still, sometimes I want that, but I think for a 22-year-old, being peaceful is not as appealing as for a 35, 40-year-old. It's just the stages of life, and I think there's a place for both of it. But yeah, so if you're listening to it, you're still a bit younger. It doesn't mean you should stop doing all these fun things, but it's just creating a bit of awareness that you don't want to make the same mistakes as many of the guys we have done it, and we talk to.
And we've even got young guys who are coming in now who are like early, mid-20s, who've already actually, and that's the nature of technology these days, they can already have huge success early on. And they're even seeing at 23, 25 years old, like, crap, I already know that I've made more than enough money logically. And I know that if I don't change this now, I'm going to fuck myself up, basically. Yeah. So there's great foresight, I think, in younger people coming through. But I think what you said before is great. It's like recognizing that there needs to be a transition, that we need to move from this maybe more hustle phase of just grinding and burning yourself out in pursuit of something greater, into a more like conscious approach, into a more like, hey, I could do this, but actually I know it's not in service of me. I know I could keep partying till I'm 50, but it's probably not going to lead to great outcomes. So how can I transition out of that life into something that's more aligned with who I am and who I'm becoming? And with that comes a certain level of grief that needs to be moved. So a grieving, deeply feeling for the things that you've put yourself through to get to where you are now, that have kind of been forgotten along the way, but really feeling like, wow, I've pushed myself so hard and it's been tough, and maybe I don't even really fully feel it or enjoy it, but I usually find that in the feeling of that deeper grief, there's space created for that joy and happiness and just contentment to rush in. And that's the process of beginning to reconnect to yourself, to start to acknowledge your wins, the things that you've actually been really successful in, that you've already done. That younger version of you is there going, cheering you on, going, wow, bro, you're killing it. This is great, And then finally, getting to a place where you can allow yourself to feel enough. So like worthy, content, and at peace, and begin to open up to the life that you've created, even already, even if you're not fully there yet, at least beginning to enjoy the journey more, and to receive all that appreciation and love for those people who are already around you, for the actual person that you are, not for what you're achieving or what you're doing. And we had this with one client, just to kind of close out, which this has been a really, really nice journey. But one client we had who, they had the party for their company. I think it was like the 10 or 15 year anniversary. And they're helping people find jobs and pairing them with jobs. And I think there was some number they'd said of this ridiculous amount of people that they had found jobs for and kind of changed these people's lives. And there was this big speech and there was this big award thing. And this client was saying, well, actually, I didn't really feel much. All these people were coming up to me and congratulating me and saying, wow, so inspiring. You should be proud of yourself. So amazing. And he didn't really feel anything, And then I think we had the breathwork session we're going into this thing of like opening to gratitude. And in feeling the grief or the letting go of like all the work that had gone into getting here, there was finally a moment of being able to feel in the breathwork session on a deeper level of like, oh my God, I've touched all these people's lives. And that idea of opening up to the gratitude and love and peace and joy that's already available right now, that's already been created. You don't need to do anything else other than just let go of the blocks and resistance and settle into that peace of I am enough right now.
Yeah. I remember that session. That was very powerful. He didn't see that coming for sure, but it was super moving to see, yeah, actually somebody working so hard, giving so much to so many people, his time, his efforts, his energy, and then going from, I had this amazing event, feeling nothing, then coming into the breathwork room and just being able to suddenly appreciate and deeply feel what he has achieved. These are the moments when I also get emotional. It's really worth it.
Yeah. And so if everything we've been speaking about today has resonated, if these stories, these examples, these messages are things that kind of speak to you on a deeper level, what I will say is there is a path forward. There is a way to, maybe in a way that seems outside the box, but as we just described, already transition from a place of I'm not there yet and I feel nothing to opening to what's already here and using that as actually your fuel to build your next 10 years, whatever that might be. For some people, that might be actually saying, I'm happy and I'm just going to focus on having a family or something. Or they might say, actually, I'm going to focus on a completely different business idea, which I always wanted to do, but I thought I had to do this other thing first, to prove myself. Or it could be taking on a completely different passion or something in conjunction with what you're already doing. But either way, there's likely a new version of you or new reality that you can begin to transition into and start to let go of this need to constantly push and hustle and finally start to allow yourself to feel the success that's already been created and that's already there. And there's much more on the way as well. So yeah, if you are seeking support in this journey of moving from where you're at to that more open, more fulfilled place, that's something that, of course, is our jam. That's what we love to do. There's the retreats, obviously, which is where we get deep with the breath work. And there can be some of those real eureka breakthrough moments like we have, where finally being able to connect to the deeper feelings of contentment and peace and enjoy that success. So there are all the different options. If any of them speak to you, then you know where to find us.
Thanks for being here today and tune in again for the next episode.